A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, owning your own home or even helping your children own their first home is more difficult today in Australia than it ever has been. Cost of living pressures, mortgage rate rises and booming property prices make the dream of everyone owning a home in Australia a mountain that many may never even attempt to climb. So today we speak with a licensed financial advisor who is passionate about helping people own their own home and experience the joy, freedom and just liberty of owning a property, even if it seems like an impossible dream. Melissa Goodin has been helping everyday Australians take control of their financial futures for more than 15 years, and the strategies and principles that she shares have transformed her own life and her own financial security. As a sole parent forced to rent out rooms to boarders in her own home to help pay the bills, she has seen God's blessing on her life, family and business, and is now semi-retired and able to juggle her work-life balance without excessive stress or pressure. So it is my great pleasure to welcome into the studios in Vision today, Melissa Goodin from Retire Me Young. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Lovely to be here.
Well, it is great to have you here, Melissa, because right now across Australia, we are witnessing unprecedented pricing in the property market. It only looks like it's going to get worse. And a lot of people are thinking right now in Australia, especially younger people, how am I ever going to own my home?
Yeah, it's really sad. I've seen it happen to friends of mine. They've had to, their rent goes up and they've had to pull their children out of that school, move them to a different school. It's really sad. I do honestly believe that owning your own home is such a stable place to be in life. It feels like it should be a human right for parents and children, especially single families that have got enough on their plate. It's a real shame. I mean, it's great for the people that have made all the money out of having property, but it's a challenge, isn't it? Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, your business is called Retire Me Young. What is the story of Melissa Goodin? Why are you sitting in this chair in front of me today, Melissa? What is your story?
Okay. My story, I guess, in summary, is one of coming from a place of, I guess, being dropped into a pit and climbing out of that pit to get myself into a place where I felt safe and secure. And I guess I unfortunately found myself divorced about 7-8 years ago. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't see it happening. I had no choice in the matter. I had 3 babies under 5. I was on mat leave, had no income. It was anyone out there who is raising babies right now understands that it's kind of, it's a different place. It's a bit of a cave. Luckily for me, I had and have a father who taught me everything I needed to know by the time I was 18. So by the time I was 18, I was buying shares, I was margin lending, I was, I definitely was, I'm a state school girl, I'm a kind of a rags to riches story. So I definitely, while my father taught me everything, I literally started from scratch. So at the time of my divorce, I'd been a financial advisor for about 10 years. So
let's stop there. So for 10 years, you'd been helping other people with their financial decision-making. You were probably in a fairly comfortable position. You were married, you felt safe and you felt stable. And suddenly you were just blindsided by a very sudden separation leading to a divorce. So you're dealing with emotional trauma. You're dealing with the responsibility of being a sole parent. And now you're also in an incredibly difficult financial situation.
Yeah, and I feel like the first thing I did, so for anyone else who's in that situation or anything similar that just seems really traumatic, I think the first thing I did was I really just took stock of where I was at. I went, okay, what are my skills? What are my abilities? And the biggest thing, and I work with my clients with this, is go, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, so if you don't know where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, you're going nowhere. You've really got to. Like, I basically said to myself, my livelihood just walked out the door, and I thought to myself, I always wanted to be a part-time career woman and mostly a mum. That was really where my heart was at. And when that income source, I guess, walked out the door from a practical perspective, I went, how do I get myself into a situation as quickly as possible so that I'm never this financially vulnerable ever again? I felt like I owed it to myself and I owed it to my children to give them a stable foundation where I just felt safe and secure and went, you know what? Life can be hard enough as it is. And if I've got a stable financial backing, then I'm okay. Then I can deal with the ups and downs, the normal life, what life throws at you. To me, it was, it just really felt like a human right.
Yeah. See, you made a decision. I think it was Napoleon Bonaparte said there's nothing more difficult and therefore more precious than to be able to decide. In other words, in a really difficult situation where there's a lot of stress, pressure, fear, to make a decision. And it's interesting. So you said part of your ability to make that decision is you drew on things that your dad had taught you as a teenage girl. So what advice have you got for parents today about their own children who are perhaps just teenagers right now as far as helping them set themselves up for their financial futures?
Okay, so I'm a massive fan of kids' investments, which in Australia is actually kind of hard to set up. So, but my view is, like, pardon the language, but stuff bank accounts, like, that is not going to get anyone anywhere. Anything that's in a bank account is probably going to get spent in the next 10 years or next year, and that's really not an investment. I really believe that every child in Australia should have a share portfolio. And I've done a cute little statistic that when your child is born, you can start an investment fund with as little as $1,000, and you can put like $25 a week in. So I did a statistic that when your child is born, you put $1,000 into a share portfolio and $30 a week until the time they're 18. There should be around about $80,000 in that share portfolio. And then you use that $80,000 to then help get the child their first investment unit, whatever it is. As soon as they're either out of high school, out of uni, earning a full-time job, every child in Australia should be able to get their first property by the time they're 18, 21, whenever they're working. Amazing.
Let's just start. So $1,000 invested at time of birth.
Yep.
And then for the rest of their life until they're 18, you put
$30 a week.
Oh, wait, that's doable.
I know. And then the cute thing is that these investment funds are literally a bank account. So it's a BSB and an account number. So every time the grandparents want to put money give the child money for their Christmas or birthday, just give them the bank account, and then they drop the money in and they're buying shares. And then the other thing that I think is I've got a psych degree as well. So I'm really big on little tips and tricks to make the most of life. So say your children are, in their teenage years, you might want to go, okay, for every good grade you get or every $20 that you put in, I'll match it with $20. So when they get, $100 at their Christmas, they might go, Mum, I'll spend $50. I'll put $50 into the investment portfolio. You match it with $50. And what it teaches children is that they should be investing constantly. Like, every human in Australia should be investing weekly. Even if it's $10 a week, $20 a week, $50 a week, it really should be like brushing your teeth, like exercise.
Something we do. Can I ask, are Australians good at saving though?
We're terrible. I lived in Japan years and years ago off the back of uni. I was so proud because I was saving 10% of my income. And I told my Japanese boyfriend at the time, I'm like, look at this. I'm saving 10%. I'm so proud. He turned to me and said, where's the other 30? I'm like, what? And he goes, we save like 30% minimum of our income. And he goes, do you know what happens in Japan if you don't save for your retirement? I'm like, what? When you get on the Shinkansen, the fast trains, look down on the side and there's blue tent cities. And unfortunately, his father was a victim of the property crash in Japan. There is no social security. Well, there wasn't when I was there. and his father lives in a blue tent next to the train station. And it is so, so sad. But in a way, it's a constant reminder for every person going to work on the train in Japan to say, if you don't make good financial decisions, that's where you end up.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's hardcore. So the average Japanese person, when you were there, was saving at least 30% of what they earn every week. And us Aussies, we're more in the moment, aren't we? We live in the moment, we spend and we enjoy life now. But so that's amazing. So I love that concept. So when you say a direct, a share portfolio for your children, are you putting it into a fund or are you buying shares directly for your children? Okay,
so thank you for reminding me, because as a licensed advisor, I need to give my no advice disclaimer. So as a licensed financial advisor, everything I say today is general advice. So please don't go and act upon what I say without doing your due diligence, getting licensed financial advice in the form of a statement of advice. There's my disclaimer. But basically start Googling. It wasn't easy finding low startup investments. There's cute little things, like there's little apps these days where you can start with $5. There's these little roundup apps. That's good to get started. I do think longer term you need to move it into like a good traditional long-term track record investment fund. There's general stuff. If you Google how to invest and the problem with buying direct shares is it's very difficult. It is becoming easier to buy consistently week in, week out. And I'm a big fan of automating what you do financially, because life gets away with us. You wake up in 5 years' time and you go, oh, I forgot to put my money in, or I forgot to do this, I forgot to do that.
So you mean like a direct debit every week?
Yeah, direct debit every week.
Don't think about it.
Wake up in a year, 2 years, 5 years and go, wow, I didn't realise I got so much.
Yep. Well, I love that idea. $1,000 at birth, $30 a week until they're 18, and you've got approximately $80,000 in a share portfolio for your little darling, who then either gets a job or goes to university or, studies to be a tradie or something like that. Mm-hmm. What awesome advice. I have a very special guest with me in the studio today. It's Melissa Goodin from Retire Me Young. We're talking about the challenge of owning our first home in Australia. Maybe you're listening today and you've migrated to Australia in the last few years from another part of the world, and you're looking at house prices going, wow, am I ever going to own my own home? Maybe you're a parent today and your child is in their late teens, early 20s, and you're worried about their financial future. You're wondering, can they ever own their first home? Or maybe you, like Melissa, have found yourself as a sole parent unexpectedly, something you never imagined would ever happen, and now you're asking yourself a question, can I, as a sole parent, own my own home? Melissa Goodin, our special guest today, is passionate about helping people own their first home, and we're going to dig more into her story. But Melissa, we do have a caller with a comment or a question for us today, and we'll take that call now. Welcome to the show.
Hello?
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Have you got a comment or a question for Melissa today?
I actually have a question for Melissa. So my husband and I, we have a daughter. She's just turned 21, and she has saved in the past. She's pretty good with money, but however, we have just recently talked about looking at purchasing the opportunity for her to have a small business, and that was blowing out to about $20,000 to $30,000. We've talked to her about what she has in savings and what she would contribute, and it was actually quite a lot lower than what we thought she would have. And so anyway, then we were talking about it and thought, well, if it meant, because she's one of those young people who's like, how am I meant to get a house? She has about 60 hours a fortnight job. She has a part-time study. But my question is, we were talking to her about putting saving more percentage of her income, and which means not spending, and we were talking about putting that in our home loan offset account. That's all, because we do have a mortgage. And we were talking to her about maybe putting it in there. So she said, well, that'll be a good idea because then I can't see it. And it was like, and then now after I hear you, we were just talking about this in the last couple of weeks. We were going to purchase this business or ability to have it, and then changed with thinking we're changing our minds about that and putting it towards something else. And we thought she could save it in there, but maybe you have a better idea for her saving her, a few $100s a fortnight, what she might do with that instead of putting it in our home loan, which won't create her any interest.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. So you're asking Melissa for her advice on either putting money in your home loan as a forced form of saving, or maybe in a share portfolio, or this other business idea. Melissa, what are your thoughts on this?
That's right. That's excellent.
Thanks for your question, and just a reminder that this is general advice. So, but yes, really good question. Yeah, and firstly, really wonderful that you're supporting your daughter, because it's really wonderful. I guess a couple of things. They're all good thoughts. So I feel like you're totally on the right track. I guess I'll give you some examples of what I'm doing for other. With my clients, a lot of their kids are in this situation and they're like, what do we do? So it all comes down to, if you're going to invest in the share market, it's obviously riskier than putting the money into your home loan. So if you put your money into home loan, the return you're getting is the interest savings, right? So you might be getting, say, 6% a year, which is actually pretty good as an after-tax return. That's actually pretty good. And it's safe and secure, right? Love the idea that it's out of sight, out of mind as well. I'm a big fan of just getting your money out of your bank account so she's not going to spend it. So yes, great idea. The other thing I have clients do, and especially kids that are say at uni so they're working part-time, especially if they're living at home, then I find that if they're not paying rent or they're paying really low board, they've got a part-time job, most of the kids that I'm dealing with in that kind of age group, they're able to save about $250 a week, right? And if we do it where you just give them a set amount to live on, just to spend every week, and everything else gets saved or invested, what I do for these children is that $250 a week into an investment portfolio. Again, doing a light calculation, it's around about $50,000 at the end of the 3 years. So if you think of a typical university degree or a typical trade qualification, you're probably going to have 2-3 years of consistent investing. And people say, yes, investing is risky, and yes, share markets can go down 25%, 45% in the GFC. This is a real issue, right? So you need to be mindful of that, because obviously if you desperately need the money to be there in 3 years, shares are a lot more risky than a home loan. But just remember that if you're investing weekly, you actually want the share market to be crashed. You want the share market to be down, right? So you want to buy in consistently. You want the share market to be low. So if it goes down, that's fine. Yes, the capital you've invested goes down. But if you're consistently buying in, week out, you're actually buying in at multiple price points. And what I generally find, I'm just going to buffer this with, in financial advice, they basically say share portfolios should be a 7-year time frame. But if we're doing what's called dollar cost averaging, it really does make a big difference, because if you're buying in weekly, and say when I pull the data out of a client's portfolio in 3 years and run the numbers, there's a good chance that most of that stuff's in profit. If you've been buying good long-term properties, you've been reinvesting the dividends, it can be a strategy that makes sense as an alternative to putting the money in the mortgage. So I guess in summary, money into the mortgage, nice, safe and secure, doing a consistent investment into the share market, as long as you can emotionally handle the ups and downs and know it's a longer-term investment, can yield you much, much better returns. So I guess, hopefully that gives you a bit of a balanced view as to the kind of options.
Shalana, did that make sense to you?
Yes, there was lots of words in there that obviously describe things that I don't know about.
Yeah,
it's really good to have those. It's good to have that, that's really good knowledge to have, to go, oh, okay, so these are some terms that are okay, you would learn about that. But also, too, obviously it is advice. But if the other thing is when you said about the money, about $250, our daughter does pay a couple of $100 a fortnight board. Plus, we're thinking that she can probably save 3 times that amount. So we would be looking at maybe putting some in something like you're talking about, and still put something in maybe something else.
Yeah, you know what? If you want some general terminology, the Australian government has a website called Money Smart. If you literally just Google Money Smart, it's a really, really good website. It's got little calculators on there. You can jump on the savings calculator. It'll teach you everything about managed funds, about investing, what the terminology is. Probably I would encourage your daughter as well to maybe jump on together, like do a dinner table conversation. Let's jump on our phones and Google some financial stuff because they've got no vested interest in. So the more you educate yourself, you're just going to, really go ahead in leaps and bounds.
And I think, Shalana, I'm going to paraphrase what Melissa was saying there. She's basically saying that the Australian share market, if you look at history, it goes up over time, but there's a small chance for all of us if we buy in the share market today that it might go down tomorrow, and people can panic about that. But my observation as a non-financial planner is that all of our super funds are invested heavily in the share market. So if the share market crashes and it collapses altogether, we're all doomed anyway because all of our superannuation is in there. No, it's true. Our futures are doomed. And so the reality is it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, well, the world ends and we all have to experience a new reality like North Korea where we all just have a little bowl and some rice every day. So I think that's what Melissa was trying to say. She's just trying to say just because you invest in shares tomorrow, it may go down in 2 days' time, but over time, over a 7-year period, Melissa, correct? You can expect the Australian share market to be up after 7 years. Is that?
Yeah, that's the general philosophy. Yes, there's going to be probably a downturn in that time, but remember, unless you have to sell, just don't sell. You don't sell if you're in a negative. You just buy more if you can afford.
Yep.
Shalana, I want to thank you so much for calling in. We've got another caller waiting. We want to get to them before the national news. But as Melissa said, what a great mum you are trying to help your daughter, be smart with her money and buy property. Full cred to you for being such a wonderful parent.
Thank you.
Have a great day, huh?
Thank you, Melissa.
You're
too.
welcome.
Bye.
And we have another caller waiting very patiently, and it is Raina. I'm hoping pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Raina from Victoria there? Is that your name, Raina? Is that how I say it?
Yeah, yep, that's it, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Hey, Melissa, I wish I heard this conversation 20 years ago when my girls were born about your $1,000 and $30 a week, but hindsight is a terrible thing. I'll keep it short. So I've got 2 kids, 19, 20, both in a permanent working position, really good savers. Both purchased brand new cars, over the last 12 months, which they paid cash for. There's an opportunity to purchase a house at the moment, and they've got a bit of money saved up between the two of them. Would you say mum and dad step up, help the kids and purchase the property? I'm the sort of person that always just rush into things like that, where my wife is always the consequences and the what if, because over the last, 20 years, we've done a few bad investments and stuff like that, and I think she's always very cautious now with those sort of things. But what's your advice just in general? Is it a good time? Is it something that they should get in as quick as possible, or what's your thoughts?
Well, Raina, we're going to get a really detailed answer after the National News Bulletin because we've only got 30 seconds to go. And if you are you able to hold for the news, or are you in a bit of a rush to go?
No, I'll hold. That's all good, Andrew.
Because that is an excellent question. But Melissa, in 15 seconds, what's your first thoughts on that?
Awesome. You pay cash for cars. Love it. Property is horrible right now. It's horrible. Really? Yeah, but having said that, if it makes sense financially, I'm all about doing the numbers. Do the numbers, and if the numbers make sense, go for it. If the numbers don't make sense, there's no hurry.
Melissa, I want to thank you again for being with us in the studio at Vision today.
Thank you, Andrew. Love being here.
Yeah, I'm loving everything you're saying today. It's so helpful, practical. Now, we do have a caller, Raina, who's waited very, very patiently. Now, I think you got his question. Just repeat to us the question, Melissa, and then you're going to download the answer.
Okay. So from what I understand, you've got 2 children, 19 and 20. You're thinking of helping them get into their first investment property, and whether that is a good idea, not good idea. I think that was the general question. So firstly, couple of things to think about. You can buy property from an emotional perspective. So if this was something they're going to live in, then often the financials don't have to make as much sense than if it's an investment property. But so you're saying this is an investment property. So a couple of things I'd be thinking of is property's kind of doubled, right? Like if I look at the history, like I've been watching property since I was 18, off the back of a big rise in property prices, it can be a really, really, really long time before property becomes a good investment again. I think people forget this. There are so many stories of people buying a property and then owning it for 8 years and that it costing them money year in, year out. And at the moment, when I look at the numbers on a lot of investment properties, especially if they're single income, we're talking losses of $10,000 to $20,000 a year. Yes, it's tax deductible, but I don't know about you, but I don't like buying stuff that's losing me money, and I don't like being in a negative cycle in life. So the first thing I would say is just be really cautious around buying property that's costing you money. If it's costing you money, you need to be able to afford that. You need to know that you should never have to sell it, because you don't want to be in that situation that you sell it in 8 years' time. You sell it for kind of similar price to what you paid for it, plus all the losses that you've acquired every year, only to then have the property double 2 years later. And this is not a rare occurrence. So I think people forget that literally property has in the past like kind of gone nowhere for sometimes 10 to 12 years. So that's when I look at property, I'm really big on commitment, and that's why I love property, because it's like you commit to a property, it's a big asset, it's a big investment. You never, ever, ever want to sell it. So I have a saying, invest like the Catholic Church. And basically for me, that means if you look around most capital cities and you see, okay, who owns the best locations and the best assets in these capital cities, a lot of them are the beautiful big Catholic buildings right in the middle, gorgeous properties, right? And you think there's no way on earth people could afford to buy that stuff these days. But, you know, like if you own something for long enough, generation after generation after generation, it is amazing like how wealthy your generations can be after you. So I guess I would say that's a big part of it. Just if you're going to buy something, check that if it's negatively geared that you can afford it and you're not losing too much money, and then never get yourself in a situation where you have to sell.
Does that make sense, Raina?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa.
And Raina, what were your thoughts? Like, what before today's show? What were you guys thinking? What were you leaning more towards, or you weren't sure?
Look, as I said, I'm the type of person that always go for these sort of things. I rush into things where my wife she's always thinking about the consequences. You know, she's a financial person, so she's very not skeptical, you know, but she's just cautious. And yeah, she's just saying, well, the kids are young, you know, they've just started their careers. What if? She's always that what if person, and I think that's where I. Just want a bit of Melissa's advice on that one. And yeah.
Just on a side note, I like your comment in the break. You said about it being a forced savings. So it is the good thing about property. So say, for example, it could be a motivating factor. So yes, your kids are young, you know, and if you say to them, if we buy this, we're never selling.
Yeah.
Then, you know, things get tough. They might have to get a part-time job to pay the mortgage, and that can be a good thing, because, you know, you wake up in 10 years and those hard work, that can pay off. So yeah.
And out of interest, Raina, what are your kids doing? Are they working or are they still studying?
No. So one is in the police force and one is went into the defence force. So yeah, that's where they are.
Oh, gee. So you got a Victorian police officer and what branch of the military are they in? The other one?
At the moment, at Kapuka in Wagga Wagga, and then coming to Seymour. I don't even know what you call it. It's close to Seymour anyway. After just the next 3 months.
Yep, so they've joined the army, correct?
Yes, correct, yes.
Very good, mate. Well, it sounds like you're a good dad and your wife's a very good mum. And we want to thank you for calling 2020, and we wish you all the best for you and your kids' financial future there.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks, Melissa, for your time and, wonderful advice.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. See you.
God bless. So we have Melissa Goodin with us today in the studio, and she's from Retire Me Young. She's got an amazing story where 6 or 7 years ago, she found herself as a sole parent unexpectedly and was in a real financial hole. Actually had to rent out rooms in the family home just to pay the bills. But from that situation till now, she's dug herself out of that financial hole. She's owns a few properties. She's semi-retired now. She really rebuilt her family's wealth as a sole parent. And Melissa, I want to ask you, let's say there are some sole parents listening today who are thinking right now, I'm never going to be able to own my own home. What is your general advice to a sole parent in that situation?
Okay, so I want to answer it in 2 parts. So the first bit is if you're going through a separation, divorce, I love helping people keep their home. So that was one of the best things my father said to me when I was going through it. He just said, Melissa, just keep your home. Just keep your home. Just keep your home. Just keep your home. And at the time I had to go on the parenting pension because I was on mat leave, and so it was a horrible, horrible time.
So your only source of income was the single parent pension.
Parent pension, and then my husband did pay some child support, luckily. But on that, the other source of income that I created from my financial knowledge was I loved my home, and I built the home, and I put so much effort into it, and I just thought, this is not fair. I thought, this is not fair that me and my children have to uproot, leave the home that we built, that is our safety net, because of the circumstance that I'm in. So, and I was thinking long term, and so I went, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I converted our master bedroom. Sorry, you got a little bit of the story wrong, so I'll tell you the story. I converted the master bedroom into a granny flat, and then I rented out the rest of the home to a family because I didn't have a way of paying the mortgage. And then I used their rent to pay the mortgage, and then it also gave me some extra income to then go out on my own and start my business and feel like I didn't have to worry financially. So, for me, it was. And then the other part of the equation was I knew that the changeover costs in selling a property and then saving and buying another property are horrible, right? So it's not so bad if you don't have to pay capital gains tax, but you've still got to pay tens of thousands of dollars in real estate fees. Then when you buy another place, you've got to pay an obscene amount of money in stamp duty.
Crazy tax.
It's ridiculous amount. Like, we're talking sometimes $50,000 to $100,000, like for some properties. It's insane. And to me, that is an absolute waste of money. And how long would that take an average person to save that back up, right? So I was like, you know what, I'm going to think 5-year plan, going back to my what's your 5-year plan? And I thought 5-year plan, dig myself out of the hole and be in a far, far, far better position. Short-term pain, I can deal with that. Short-term pain's okay if you've got a longer-term plan that you know you can achieve. So lived with the kids in a single room to keep the marital home, to get the bank loan, to do all that. And you know what? If I look back now, that property has tripled in value I think my divorce was like 8 years ago. And I was just telling the kids on the drive to school this morning because I give them my little tidbits of financial advice. And you know what? There you go, like tripled from that one good decision.
Wow, amazing.
And
amazing.
So that's what I say to my clients going through divorce, and if they have to turn it into investment property to get the rent, to pay and then they go back and live with mum for a year, 2 years, you know what? How bad do you want to set yourself up? That's what I go. You dig deep and go, what do you really want and what are you willing to pay for it? Because sometimes you got to pay.
Yep.
But my belief is you pay now and the rewards come.
Yep. So you're a big believer in buy and hold.
Absolutely.
Big believer in buy and hold, which my understanding is Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world,
Yep.
one of the most famous investors ever, is all about buy and hold too. Now, Melissa, we do have a caller, and we're going to go to that caller. Someone else was trying to call in before. We apologise that you didn't get through, but if you call again, the talk lines are open on 1-800-316-316. That's 1-800-316-316. Now, we do have a caller, an anonymous caller from New South Wales. Welcome to the program today.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for the opportunity. I suppose of wanting some advice and tell you a sad story. I'm in the middle of a divorce at the moment. So at the moment, the ex is wanting a very large sum of money to go and buy the equivalent house that we've been living in, which actually was given to me by my late father. We had plenty of money a couple of years ago. We sold, and I didn't want to. We sold 2 investment properties to finance our kids to have their own property. So both our children now, just in their early 20s, actually own their own homes, which left us with no sort of spare cash. So this ex-wife is going to have to borrow around $1 million because she will not live anything less than what she's been used to. And it will mean at 60-year-old nearly, she's going to have a fair sort of a millstone. I'm tried desperately to talk her out of offered to pay the rent on a property of the equivalent standard that she wants, but I can't seem to get that message through. If you got something that I could tell her to understand, like you said, this is the worst time. I've done well over the years through investment, and my children have observed that, and the ex-wife has observed that. And I'm saying, well, you've seen what we've been able to do as a family. This is going against what you've seen. It's a wise move.
So you're really asking Melissa today, have she got any advice for you that you could potentially give to your ex-wife? You guys are divorced now, are you?
It's would be probably right about now. She's had barristers lined up, and they are. Well, she's threatening I'll have to sell this family home, which I inherited, which is a big part of me because this property I'm on is actually older than me. My family have had it for more than 65 years, and there's a farm as well involved, which has been owned for even longer than that, and it has a house on it which was built by my grandfather 100 years ago. So the couple of little properties that are joined together are fairly significant, but for her to get me to sell that, she would only be getting it to sell it to fulfill what she wants. So it would be a bit of heritage lost. I spoke to my son. I said, my son, do you realise that you possibly won't inherit this historic family farm and property if your mum goes down that road?
Yeah, okay. Well, I just want to go to Melissa. I just want to go to Melissa now because this is very complex, obviously, and she's only giving out general advice today. But Melissa, what's your response to this?
Yeah, so question, if she doesn't want the property but she wants another house, could you just take a loan out on the property and give her the cash?
Because I can't work anymore. I've had some medical issues for the last 3 years and not been able to work, and there's no way I'd be able to pay repayment.
How old did you say you were?
64.
Do you have super that you can take?
I've actually cashed my super. I had 2 supers. I cashed one to pay the stamp duty on the house for the son, and the other ones I've just cashed, and I'm trying to accumulate enough so that she can get the deposit on what she wants. And like I said, I feel threatened, I suppose, in some ways, but I'm doing whatever I can to try and retain my family inheritance.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, if you want the property and she doesn't, then I would be doing everything you possibly can to keep it. So the few things that are coming to mind are, if it's a rural property, is there some way of splitting off a portion and selling that and keeping the remainder?
No, possibly, but I don't think it would have 40. It's not. My brother inherited from my father the larger portion. I got the better house, if you can put it that way. So I don't have a lot of property. I don't think it would be subdividable.
So your brother's got one side and you've got the other?
Yeah.
So they're already probably on 2 titles.
They have been split because as we inherited them, my brother and I, they were on the one title to the both of us. What do they call it? Transitional farming or something, whatever it was. Okay. So, but he wanted to build a new house on part of his property, so we come to an arrangement where we split them so that he had a property that he.
It's possibly worth a call to the town planner to say, if your brother's in a financial position to take over more land and maybe do a boundary realignment and give him some land, and then in return for cash.
He's fairly committed to building a new house, unfortunately. He doesn't have any cash. We don't have cash because it's not wise. We've worked from our father, the investment. And as you said, you shouldn't have cash laying around. You're doing the wrong thing if you have. You've got to have it.
I mean, the other thing I would look at things like, do you say you're in New South Wales?
Yeah.
I think there's some good rules in New South Wales around being able to put second dwellings on properties without approval, those kind of things, like getting the rental. This is even just using projected stuff. So whether you could engage a broker and say, look, if we put one of these little cheap, they're really cheap, like little second dwelling things, and then just got a real estate agent to write a letter saying this is what it would rent for, like what kind of amount could we borrow, and then the rent off the little granny flat would then fund the loan.
Once the separation, which we're trying to have happen, then I would be the only person owning the rents coming in on those properties, you see, so that the bank won't realise the rent coming from someone else's property for her to borrow the money, if you know what I mean.
No, I'm saying you borrow the money. So
I borrow the money. Okay.
If you owned the land, if you kept the property,
Okay.
you put a tiny home thing on, you got a real estate agent to write a rental saying it would rent for X amount of
I've already
dollars.
done that. Both the titles
Okay.
had 2 houses on them because I put another
Well, then that's
house on
income.
each.
If there's income coming on the property,
that's what I'm
that
living
should
on
fund a loan.
because I haven't worked for 3 years. That's what I'm surviving on because I don't work.
Yeah,
But
that's your
fine.
source
I
of
can,
income. But I want to just thank you so much for your call today. We do have another caller waiting, and Melissa is only here for about 5 more minutes. But hey, I want to thank
that
you.
was good advice. Yep.
Well, you know what? And I just want to also just extend some empathy towards you. This is just it's always challenging. There's so much emotion involved, and in your case, the family history, and it's not a good story, my friend. And we just pray that God helps you and steers you and strengthens you and your ex-wife and your kids in the next couple of years as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Melissa.
Okay, thanks for the caller. Now, we've got another caller waiting, Melissa, and it is Arn from South Headland, WA. Are you there, Arn?
Yes, thank you for picking me up. I'm just in break, but I'll just make it short. My question to Melissa, I'm not a kind of person who's good in money, but I'm trying my best, because I'm in 50s now, but I'm thinking, to own a property. And I got 5 kids. Some of them, they already are over 17, but they are not doing well. But for myself, I'm working very hard to just do something for myself and for them also. And
so your question to Melissa is, can you realistically try and own your first home? Have you owned a home before?
No, I try, but we couldn't agree with my partner. But now I'm in 50s. Just my question is that a good time or is too late to own a property?
That is an excellent question, Aunt. I'm going to hand over to Melissa right now. Melissa, what's your response to that?
Okay, depends how long. If you're intending on living into your 90s, it's 40 years. It's a good time. Better be owning a home for the next 40 years than renting, that's for sure. So a couple of questions, and I'm not sure totally your situation, but just for, because of time, people out there who have dependent children under the age of 15, the government has the 2% deposit scheme for single parents. So literally, I helped a client get into a $500,000 home with $12,000 savings plus a couple of $1,000s in stamp duty. We saved that money in 12 months.
So hang on. So the government gives you 2% of the value of the home you're purchasing?
So you pay 2% of the value of the home.
Oh, okay. So you've got to come up with 2% yourself.
You come up with 2%, that's it.
And what does the government contribute?
They basically, so normally in that situation, you would pay what's called lender's mortgage insurance, which can be like 10, 20 grand on the back of your loan. Sometimes it's still a good idea, but the government basically wipes that. So they kind of fund that somehow or other. So basically what it means is for single parents who do have children under the age of 16, they can get into a home with as little as a 2% deposit. So it's a really, really good idea. And I guess just in general, yes, again, property prices are horrible. I just feel like owning a small home, something that you can afford, is better than renting. My personal view is that rents are just going to keep getting worse and worse. They have to, because properties are so negatively geared. So at the moment, and I just think that owning your own home is always a good stabilization move. It's good for your kids. It's good for everyone. And you know what? If you buy a nice little cheap property that you can afford, there's nothing stopping you, making some good financial decisions in 5 years' time, maybe renting that out and turning it into an investment property. So again, a small home that you can afford or some kind of property that makes sense financially, I think is always a good idea, even in these horrible markets like now. Yeah.
That's really solid advice. And what's your response to that?
Yeah, I just got another question because I'm nearly finished now my break time. How can I keep in touch with Melissa? And thank you for your advice and God bless. And I just want to how can I be one of your clients to keep in touch with Melissa?
Well, I'll give Melissa a free plug. Her business is called Retire Me Young. And if you Google search retiremeyoung.com.au, you can reach out to Melissa's business. So it's retiremeyoung, one word, .com.au. And I just want to thank you for calling. You're obviously a very good dad. You've got 5 kids. You care about your kids. You're doing your best. You're working hard. And kids are a challenge, my friend, for all of us. I don't know anyone with perfect kids, and you said you got a couple of challenges there. But Melissa just wants to share one more thing with you too before you go.
Yeah, just wanted to say that my heart really is there for people who are kind of struggling. I tend to be the advisor for people that other advisors won't touch. I really believe you can help everybody. And I have clients that are 18 years of age right through to 85. I have wealthy clients. I have less wealthy clients. If you jump on my website, retiremeyoung.com.au, there's a little booking link where you can book a free 15-minute phone call with myself. I can have a chat to you and just hear your circumstances, give you a bit of a heads up. And then I offer a free 1-hour meeting, where I can go through and talk about how I can actually give advice as a financial advisor for your circumstances. So don't feel like you don't have enough money. My view is if you've got a decent job, you've got a way of earning income, and you've got a passion to get yourself ahead, I'm sure there's something we can do to help you.
Thank you, Maz. God bless you. And I'll make sure I'll be in touch with you. And
God bless you, Aunt. You better get back to work. You've been on your break. But thanks again for calling, and call us again sometime on 2020.
God bless, mate.
Well, Melissa, this has been really good. We've got to get you back again, I think, because we've only just touched the surface of the things we wanted to talk about today. But so good taking calls, hearing real stories, and I love the advice you've been giving out today, I should say. But just, in the last 30 seconds, Melissa, what else would you like to say to the audience today?
Probably the only thing I haven't really covered that I'd like to say is that if you get yourself, and this is where I really believe, like as a Christian, I believe in giving from overflow. I've met a lot of Christians who feel guilty wanting to get wealthy. They're like, I shouldn't want to get wealthy. God doesn't like that. And I just go, you know what? I firmly believe the world needs more wealthy Christians. I feel like if you're doing it for the right reasons, you set yourself up. You set yourself and your family up. You can then sow into the next generation. You can set your children up, get them on the right track. Then you can overflow onto whatever your passion projects is, giving back to people. I really feel like setting yourself up and being in a position of personal financial success is what I hope for all Christians. And frankly, we need more rich Christians. And may the power go to the kindest people in the world.
I love that. What a great closing statement. If you missed before, Melissa's website is retiremeyoung.com.au. Melissa Goodin has been our special guest today from retiremeyoung.com.au. Melissa, I want to thank you so much for coming to the studio today. She's had a little one with her today who's been such a good little girl. I'm hoping that no one's heard too much from Sophie, but she's a beautiful little girl. And Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Andrew, for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.